Hey YouTube, Kevin Clear here with a knife video for you. And I've got a knife here that I've been really impressed with, and because of that I wanted to share it with you. I picked this up on sale, and I made a video about that really good sale from Knife Center where they were selling these things for 22 bucks. I picked it up and I've been using it for quite a while now, and wanted to make some comments about the knife in general. Hopefully, if you're just watching this for a couple of minutes to see whether or not you should buy this knife, I'm going to say even at $45, it's a great knife. If you can get the $22 deal from Knife Center, it's a fantastic knife. I mean, this thing blows away by a long shot any other $20 knife that's out there, and that's because it's comparable to and built as well as most $45, $55 knives. It's a very good blade. Let's get into the more detailed part of this discussion. You can click off now if you just want to know whether or not you should buy it. Buy it. I don't think you'll be disappointed. If you want to know a little more, hang with me, and let's get into some introduction material. This is a Kirby Lambert design. It's done by Meyerco, and they kind of collaborated a while back. Now, one of the things that's really cool about this is very faithful to Lambert's design. I'll roll in some other Lambert knives so you can kind of see the similarity there, and I really appreciate when knife companies do that. I really like it when they take the time and energy to do exactly what the designer has done, even down to the bolster and the blade shape and all that kind of stuff. Now, that is certainly really cool, and that's a reason to get this on you. And I think if you've watched other videos, if you watch my Why I Like CRKT video, I talk about how much I appreciate that when a company just takes what's essentially a custom knife and just puts it into production, and allows those of us who may never have the money to invest in blades to own a custom to get our hands on something that really has the feel and is the brainchild of a designer that we really like. I just really appreciate that. Now, the other thing that I should say about this is it's very good. There are a lot of Meyerco knives out there, and I think that they have a reputation for being meh, whatever their reputation in general is, this knife is exceptional. The fit and finish is good, the quality is good, just a very well done blade by Meyerco here. Now, I'm not commenting on anything else they've done, but this demonstrates at least their ability to work at a fairly high degree of quality. Now, the size and weight on this, it's a hefty knife. It's big, 3 3/4 inch blade, 4 3/4 inch handle, so you got 8.5 inches overall. It's heavy, 6.7 ounces, so it's hefty. Now, what I'll say about that is I've carried this a lot and don't find myself saying, man, I wish it was lighter. I do like lighter knives. I'm like everybody else. I'm going to carry something in my pocket. I do care about how much it weighs, but for some reason this isn't that onerous. The other thing about that weight is that it kind of gives it some more credibility. If you are into custom knives, if you own any custom knives, if you like custom knives, you'll know that they are heavier. They're definitely on the high end of the scale. Watch Jim Skeleton's channel, and he'll talk about when he talks about weight, it's up there. They're pretty hefty, and so it almost makes it feel more like an actual Lambert, that it weighs a little more. The handle here is basically 1/2 inch, okay? Give or take a 1/16 of an inch. I'm not going to get into too much detail on that, but it's not wide enough that you're like, oh man, I wish it was a bit smaller. No big issue there. Let's go into the blade itself. I love this blade shape. I'm not crazy about the blade steel. So this is HCR13 MOV, and we can't complain that much. The Spyderco Tenacious is insanely popular, and it's HCR13 MOV. This knife is in that same steel, and you can kind of see, I find that HCR13 in satin finish doesn't finish out as well as AUS 8 as far as I'm concerned. Personal preference, don't go crazy. I wish this blade were AUS 8. I think it would really make the blade a little more in keeping with the higher end materials of the rest of the knife, and just add, it would just take what's a good knife, and maybe even a great knife, and just make it that much better, okay? I'm not complaining. I have nothing to complain about. I've cut all kinds of things. I've done all kinds of work, and this blade has held up really well. So I'm not complaining. I'm not saying, it can't do the job that I want it to do. It definitely does. But I just wish it were OS 8. Now let's get into why this knife performs so well, and that is primarily about this. The way this blade is ground, it's a deep hollow grind, very, very sharp, great recurve, great belly, and because of the specific shape of this, because of the deep hollow grind, because of the amount of steel that is here and here behind that cutting edge, it slices like you wouldn't believe. Just slides through all kinds of materials. I've cut everything from soup to nuts. Not literally soup because you can't cut it, but I've cut wood, I've cut, you know, branches, I've cut cardboard, I've cut plastic, I've cut, you know, hard plastic like a bubble container, and I've cut soft plastic poly. I've cut food, every kind of food. By the way, I always like to test my knives on tomatoes, because if it cuts tomatoes well, that says something about the edge, about your ability to sharpen it, and about its geometry, how well it slides through. But I've also cut meat, both cooked and raw. Again, that tells you a lot about the effectiveness of a blade, because it can deal with bones, can it deal with grizzle and fat, and you know, just I've cut everything, and this blade has held up and exceeded my expectations in every single area that I've used it. So although I'm complaining about the blade steel, I'm sure not complaining about the blade shape or functionality. It's fantastic. You got this nice satin finish. It does have the Lambert maker's mark on here. This nice swedge cut into the top. I do want to, at this point, bring in the Ontario Utilitac. One, you can kind of see a size comparison. I guess I should, I've got my Pair 2 with me here too, so you can see that. My Pair 2, by the way, is wearing the Casey Lynch custom clip, which is fantastic, but that gives you a good idea of size, okay? Now there's much more handle to, the handle to blade ratio is very different, but you can see they're similar in size overall. Now, I want to bring the Utilitac back in because a lot of people have compared it, and by the way, I noticed a similarity. I saw this knife, and that was actually part of the reason I was interested in it. I love this knife. In terms of a value folder, I think this is the best on the market. You know, you can have one of these for like $26, $27, and it just blows away. I much prefer this over the Tenacious. Let's just say that. I love this knife. I'm totally impressed with it. I've used it a ton, and I love it. And when I saw this, and it looked similar, I was like, I already love the Utilitac, and this looks like an upgrade to it, and it is. Better materials, heavier, larger. I do prefer larger knives, larger blade, thicker liner. This is one of the thickest liners I've ever seen. You know, I would probably suspect, I don't own a Zero Tolerance 0200, but I would suspect the 0200 probably has a liner of about this thickness or even a little thicker. But to get that on a $22 knife is pretty good. Now, I already told you it's heavy, and that's one of the reasons it's heavy. It's fairly thick liners. Anyway, back to the blade shape. There are some significant differences in blade shape. One is size, the depth of the recurve, the size of the belly. This blade, I believe, is a little better in terms of functionality and blade shape than this one, and so that's one of the reasons. In addition, the comfort of the handle, the jimping on the back of the blade. I believe this is an upgrade from the Utilitac, although it's heavier. Okay, so there will still be times where I carry the Utilitac, but this blade, I believe, is an upgrade from that. If you really like the Utilitac, you will love the Shockwave. There is a top swedge cut here on the top, and the jimping is the last thing I need to mention. It's very good. It's just grippy enough that it locks you in without tearing your thumb apart. But that's going to move us into the handle. The rest of the handle is not, there's not a lot of jimping anywhere else. The handle is primarily using the shape, you know, the finger choils and the curve downward to give you that grip that's comfortable and useful. It doesn't depend on jimping a whole lot. Maybe we could complain and say there could be a little more in various places, but I don't think it's the end of the world, especially in the fact that I think this is going for more of a heavy-duty gentleman's folder rather than, you know, a bushcraft knife or something like that, or even a tactical blade where, you know, maybe you'd want more jimping. The handle is awesome. The materials, carbon fiber and G10 at this price point is outstanding. It is a liner lock, and it's a super thick liner lock. And to talk about the lockup and deployment, the thumb studs, the lock, all of that stuff that you use when you're opening and closing the knife are very useful, very comfortable. They don't tear your hands up too bad. They just work really, really well. I'll give you a good shot of that. You can see how thick that scale is, and why I feel like it's, you know, a pretty heavy duty knife. No lanyard hole, although if you really, really insist on putting a lanyard on every knife you own, there is some space between the blade and that bottom standoff. You could definitely wrap some 550 cord around there. You would have to make it tight though, to make sure that it's not falling into the blade when it's closed and slowly, you know, cutting through your cord. The pocket clip is very Lambert-esque, which you'll know from looking at the pictures earlier in the video, and it's very functional. You know, rides very nicely, not too low, but not too high. Retains in the pocket well. You know, not a lot to say about the pocket clip in terms of it just works. You know, it's not repositionable, but it does the job. Now, the other thing I should point out here is maintenance. You see where those standoffs are, here, here, here. Now you look here where you're expecting to see screws, there are none. In order to take this knife apart, you have to take the scales off, take those screws out, and then take the knife apart. So it's sort of an extra step. Probably not the end of the world, but if you're a person who's like me, you take your knives apart, you clean them, you oil them, you just got to know there's one more step involved in doing that, okay? And I haven't taken this one apart. I've had no reason to. By the way, as we're talking about cleaning and maintaining that pivot area, it is Teflon washers. That's an issue in this sense. One, it's Teflon. It's not metal, so there's going to be some durability issues there. But the other thing, and I've noticed this with other Teflon knives, you will get some blade flex. Now this knife is nice and tight. There's no actual blade play, but because Teflon is soft, there's a little bit of give there. And so you can get a little bit of movement. It's not blade play where you can click, 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 click. It's just a little bit of flex, and it's because of those Teflon washers. They're soft, so there's a little bit of give. It's not a lot, and it's not. You probably wouldn't even notice it unless I just told you that in the video, but it is there. So that's the handle. You know, very, very functional, very, very high-end, classy, awesome-looking handle, awesome-looking overall design, and very, very pleased. Overall, I would say this knife, if you're looking for an EDC knife that's kind of classy, that you can take out in most situations, is not going to bother anyone, you know, this is a real winner, especially if you can get that $22 deal from Knife Center. That's outstanding. Now, if you live in Canada, you're going to have a problem because it's going to be like $17 to ship. So you lose out on how good that deal is just because the shipping is so high. But there is a workaround. If you have some friends in the US and they'd be willing to accept a package for you and then send it on, that's probably your best option. And by the way, that's your best option when it comes to shipping and saving money on shipping for all kinds of blades. Either ship it to someone and have them ship it up, or ship it to them and plan, you know, a trip to the US when you can stop by and pick it up. Very, very viable if you're into knives and you live in Canada. It's just there's an extra cost all the time, and you know what? We live in a global marketplace. I say wherever you can find what you want within that marketplace, have at it, right? I don't think it's fair that we get punished just because we live in Canada, you know, for no good reason at all. You have to pay $40 more for, you know, everything. Sorry, I'm not doing that. That's my rant about buying knives in Canada. But what I did with this one was ship it to a friend in the US so that it was like $3 to ship instead of $17 or $25. Overall, I absolutely love this knife. I've carried it a lot, you know, and I've got good options. I can carry other really cool blades, and I do, but this thing ends up in my pocket a lot of times. One, you know, if I'm going to do some, I don't mind breaking it, losing it. It was only 22 bucks. Now, after using it for a few weeks, I have become very attached to it, so I'm a little more careful with it than I was at first. But that tells you something about the knife itself. If as you use it, it wins you over and you like it more and more and more, that says something. And this knife is one that's totally won me over. The more I've used it, the more I've owned it, the more I like it. So if you have that opportunity to pick up a Meyerco Shockwave, do it. You won't be disappointed. Totally great blade. That's what I've got for you. Talk to you later.